So, do you have a passion, a story, a message to share? Maybe you need some clarity around that idea. Or maybe you think about all the many ideas that you have, right? Or, Jonathan, people tell me I should be better at relationships and networking. Well, if you have any of those questions, I'm excited today to have a special interview that I'm going to be bringing on in just a second. Brian Dixon, author of the book, I've got it right here, Start With Your People, the daily decision that changes everything. This is a great book. If you struggle in relationships, or maybe you're struggling with where you are in your career, maybe you want to start a business, then you really want to dig into today's interview. I'm so excited about this. Not only is Brian an author, he's also one of the most creative entrepreneurs that I know, so much so, we might get into this topic today, that he helped his son, he assisted his son in starting a business online and actually built it up very quickly. And his son actually sold the business, which is really cool. And so we're going to be talking about all things today. So welcome. I'm Jonathan Milligan, author of the book, Your Message Matters, How to Rise Above the Noise and Get Paid for What You Know. And all this week, we are featuring amazing entrepreneurs, both who are already doing this full time and also people who are in the trenches. They're in the middle of building their businesses. And I think it's so important to hear people at all different levels. So this week, we've called it Live Your Passion. I want to inspire you at the beginning of 2021 that despite what happened to you in 2020, your future has not been written yet. And that, yes, now is the best time ever to get started. We need you out there. We need you stepping forward in a big way in 2021. So I think I'm ready to go. Who's here with me? Let me know. Put your first name, where you're watching from. I see some people already putting it in the chat. Again, whether you're hanging out over on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, today's going to be an awesome day. At 3 p.m., I'm going to be doing a special interview with Loria Petrucci. If you don't know about her, she's from Live Streaming Pros. And I've learned a ton over the last year about how to do live streaming, how to handle the equipment, the software, everything you see me do every single week on the Market Your Message show. I learned from Loria. So be sure to come back at 3 p.m. Eastern. In fact, if you're hanging out over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be notified this afternoon on your phone when that interview goes live. We're going to be talking about how to get started with live streaming. Even if you have no audience, no budget, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then tonight, 8 p.m., I'm excited to feature Charles Wesson. He's from right here in our own community here. He's doing a really cool project in business. He's helping restaurant owners who are suffering right now how to re-engage their inactive guests. And we're going to be talking about what he's up to and building his online business through coaching and consulting restaurant owners, which is so needed right now today. So let me go ahead and say hello to a few people. Faye says, love all these interviews, Jonathan. You're welcome. Brianna says hello from Jamaica. Lynn is hanging out from snowy Illinois. Oh, it's definitely not snowing for me in Florida yet, but Lynn, I'm so glad you've got some snow. My kids are probably a little jealous. Randy's here from Rockford, Michigan. Glad that you're here. Rich is here from Michigan. Can't wait to hear Brian today. That's awesome, Rich. You're going to enjoy it. It's a real treat. And so for many more of you, if you're hanging out, wherever you're hanging out from, watching us right now, go ahead and let us know you're here. Put your first name where you're watching from. All right. Without further ado, I want to get into our topic today. And so we're going to be bringing on Brian. Like I said, Brian, again, is the author of the book, Start With Your People. You can pick this up in bookstores anywhere. And you can also order it online through Amazon as well. And he's just a phenomenal book about relationships. But what I also love about Brian is he does a great job of helping people get clarity. Get crystal clear clarity on where they're heading, where they're moving forward. Plus, he just knows everything about online business. There's a guy who I would consider to be a serial entrepreneur. It's this guy, if you know any of his story. So I'm really excited to bring him on. In fact, let's bring him on to the stage right now. Brian, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Awesome.
Awesome, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah, and I'm excited about our conversation today. I'm trying to remember how we got connected. I think it was a mutual friend back in the day, Dennis McEntee, I think it was, if I
I
remember
believe
right.
it was. Yeah,
He's like,
Dennis is
hey, there's
awesome.
this guy in Charlotte, Jonathan, you need to know. And that's kind of how our relationship started. And then we met up at an event a couple years ago and got to hang out in person, which was a lot of fun. In fact, you had an extra ticket for the event, and you're like, "Hey, does anybody want this ticket?" And I was like, "Me," because the event was right in my backyard in Orlando, and we got to hang out
I love it.
for a couple days. And then just following your journey, I know you came down to Jacksonville, where I live. You were ahead of me on publishing your book. And so we sat down. I hadn't gotten a book contract yet, but I just soaked up all the knowledge of what you were going through at the time. And I really appreciate that advice. In fact, I remember one of the things that you told me was how important the book title is, and that people have to really, if they don't understand what the book's about with the title, you've lost. And I thought that was really helpful for me. And like, I mean, we brainstormed 50, 60, 70 some titles,
Yeah.
and even went back and forth with the publisher. And I just appreciate that about you, along with all the other advice. So take a moment right now, Brian, and tell people a little bit more about you and the kind of people you serve.
I love it. Jonathan, thanks so much for having me. I think you and I have a similar origin story because I was working at a school. I was a middle school and then a high school teacher. And then I quickly found my way into administration over several years of teaching because I was the technology coordinator. I was helping teachers use technology in the classroom. And this is as the internet was really starting to get going. This is, 20 years ago now, and people started websites. I'm like, oh, I'll just have a website for my classroom. I'll put a website up with my tutorials, but I never really made the leap from I am working on somebody else's dream. I'm working in somebody else's school to I'm building my own dream on the side. I really never made that connection for a while where I look back and I'm like, why wasn't I posting these tutorial videos online with that other people besides my teachers could go through? Well, fast forward, we actually had a pretty traumatic event that happened in our family. One of my cousins, he was 11 years old. I now have an 11-year-old son, so I can really feel the gravity of what happened of that situation. It turns out that one of my 11-year-old cousins was actually addicted to pornography. That he was waking up in the middle of the night because he had a computer in his bedroom, which is a big mistake, but we didn't know that 15, 20 years ago. And he was logging on to the internet and looking at pornography, which is, against the values of our family. And it kind of ruined Christmas for
Mm.
for us and for our family. And that was my first product. My first product I ever created online was called The Internet and Your Kids. Healthy Habits for a Safe Online Home. It was a DVD, Jonathan. It wasn't a
Yes.
membership site or a course. It was a DVD.
We go at old
And
school.
we're going old school, right? This is my first product. So this is how I actually got started. Because as a teacher, as a technology teacher, it was obvious to me how to keep your kids safe on the internet. But what I've discovered is that what's obvious to you is magic to other people. And it was obvious to me, here's what you do to help keep kids safe. But my extended family didn't know that. And turns out other families didn't know that. And so what we did is we took this DVD. And because I didn't know how to get it manufactured and distributed and things like that, I just used CreateSpace, which is now Kindle Digital Publishing, KDP, and I uploaded it to Amazon and I set it and forgot it. Like I thought I'll buy about 15 copies to hand out to my parents of my students and that's it. And it turns out, this is a crazy story. It turns out there was a nun, like a nun who works at a Catholic school system in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and she bought copies for every single one of her schools. And so I logged into my Amazon account about a couple months after I'd launched it, and thousands of dollars were sitting there waiting for me. And that's what really got me started as an entrepreneur. It took me a few years to kind of exit the classroom, but that was really my first product that I ever created. It was
Wow.
scratching my own itch. It was helping people in my actual life. That's why I say start with your people. Figure out who can you already help in your life right now. There might be a product there.
Man, wow. Like I didn't even know that story, Brian. So I'm here learning something about you, which is so cool. And so your start was with a DVD. Mine was a CD.
Right.
So
Yep.
I started with a blog for career coaching for accounting financial professionals. That's where
So nerdy.
that's I know that's the thing that like started. Here's the big secret. I'm not an accountant. Never been a
Nope.
CPA. I've never taken accounting. But I spent some time after being a high school teacher helping accountants through an executive recruiting firm that I worked for. And so I got to know a little bit about that. But here's the thing. So when I first started, I wanted to create something. And I actually used Kanaki. I think it's still around.
I remember it. Yes.
And I created a CD on the top 10 secrets for finding your ideal job or your best job or something. The other
Yep.
day I was moving around stuff on my bookshelf and I found that. And if I wasn't like hooked up and wired into my headphones, I'd go grab it right now. But I still have that CD. And I was like, man, that was just such humble beginnings. I remember the first 10 or 15 of those I sold it for like
Yes.
$8, but it was like, wow, this is like a real thing. And I
That's
think
right.
everybody needs to know that for all of us, it took that moment of present courage to
Hmm.
like step out and do something. Because
Yes.
for you could trace everybody that you admire, you could trace back their story to that moment of present courage. I'm sure you could even say that, when you put that DVD together, you're probably a little bit like, is this going to work? And can you talk about looking back, how
Yes.
important that courage was in the beginning?
Oh, it's so big, and you know, a lot of my coaching clients I work with are kind of faith inspired or faith based people, and a lot of times the marketing advice kind of rings a little hollow because it feels like it's about us,
Yeah.
and so for my passion based or mission based or even faith based people out there, I've got a quick verse for you that reminds me of why it's okay to get started where you start. It's Zechariah 4:10. Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin.
Yeah. Love
And
that verse.
that's where we're at right now. There's somebody in your life right now who needs your help, and so just the courage is actually for them. Having courage for them. You think about to take your courage and infuse it into somebody else. That's what courage is all about. So I had the courage to stand up for the parents and the students in my classroom to say, here's how to keep your kids safe on the internet, and I'm willing to figure out how to make a DVD. And then the same way you watching right now, what is broken? I talk about this a little bit in my book. Fix what's broken. Look around you, look around your industry. What's broken? And realize if you realize it's broken, if you identify that it's broken, you probably already know part of the solution
Mm,
because you know what it could be or what it should be. And so I pay attention to my shoulds so that I can help make those real. And often that's through training. So to answer your question, how do you get that courage to get started? It really is start with your people. It's realizing the injustice of the brokenness, that there's
mm,
something in your life or in your industry that is wrong. That keeps you up at night, that fires you up. So for example, like right now in the time when we're live streaming this, there are still families that are trying to figure out their educational options for their kids.
mm-hmm.
I have several friends who their school didn't go back, so they've got 2 more weeks of virtual schooling. There's a lot of pain there, and people pay for the pain to go away. So maybe it's creating curriculum, it's creating some sort of a group, it's creating something online where there's a lack of connection. Maybe you can provide some of that connection. So look for the pain, and you'll get the courage by solving that pain for people you care about.
Yeah, what I love is that you, Brian, I've seen you just live this out just from the different, offers that you've put together and the things you've put
Yeah.
together. To me, from where I sit, it's like, man, Brian's always forward thinking and really creating an awareness for what's
Mm.
going on in the present moment. I love that. In fact, one Facebook user wrote, what's obvious to you isn't obvious to other people. I need this quote on my mirror kitchen. It's actually what's obvious to you is magic to others.
Hmm.
And I've heard you say that quote over and over again. And I tell people all the time that quote and attribute it to you because I just love it. Because it really is like the heart of the first part of this book that I wrote
Yeah.
is helping people understand that they do have a unique ability, that they have a gift. And oftentimes it's that thing that's just, we look at it and go, huh, it's ordinary. Everybody can do that. Everybody
Yes.
thinks that way. Everybody has that worldview. Everybody has that viewpoint. And the truth is, that is wrong. Like
Yes.
the stuff that is easy often to you is that magical thing to other people. And it took me a while to realize that. And after I got some, because it's like the saying, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle.
Totally.
After I got some outside people in my world, you said start with your people. I think a great exercise is ask the people who know you best what your strength is. What is it that you do best? How do you show up best? And the word that they gave me was resourceful. And so when I first got that, I was like, okay, resourceful, or practical. Okay, that was the other one. Like I could be very practical, and I'm like, that just seems boring to me, right? But then the more I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, I can use this resourcefulness.
Hmm.
Blogging became an outlet for me to take those 6 or 7 years doing recruiting and helping people find better jobs to now I'm putting it out all online and sharing this knowledge with everybody. That was me being resourceful. And so I absolutely love that about you. And that quote, yes, that's worth putting it on the fridge. What's ordinary to you is magic to others. I love that. What were
Yes.
some of your biggest challenges when you first got started?
Hmm. Leaving a job, that was the hardest part, because I think it's Ben Arment. He's a great business coach, and he says there's nothing besides cocaine. There's nothing more addicting than a regular salary.
Oh,
Isn't that good?
also called golden handcuffs is what,
Golden
if,
handcuffs. A salary is what they pay you to forget about your dream.
mm,
So think about it. You might be making a great salary, and here's the thing, Jonathan. Like what was crazy is I kept growing in my career. My last job, job, in education was as the founder of a charter school network. I was getting paid six figures a year. I got to come and go kind of as I wanted to. I got to hire everybody I worked with. I had a real public facing position, so I could speak, I could write. I mean, it was kind of a dream job, but reality was I was building somebody else's dream. And I loved, I mean, it was a passion project. I loved being part of what I did and helping first generation college bound kids get to college for the first time. It was very rewarding. It's called the Mentorship Academy. It's now in its 10th year, this
wow.
charter school that we started in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But as rewarding as that job was, I still knew that I was called for something even bigger. I was
Mm,
called to help messengers make a difference, grow their impact and their income online. And I was just itchy. And if you're watching right now and you're in a job or you're kind of struggling to get started, like I would say lean into that itch. Like what is it that makes you kind of unsettled and realizing that might be your calling, to be free. Now, how do you do it? Man, I wish I had a time machine because I would have done it totally differently. Great advice I heard from Dave Ramsey a long time ago was when you go from an employee to an entrepreneur, it's kind of like standing on a dock and getting into a boat. You want the boat to be as close as possible. And so if you have some savings, if you have some clients already set up, that's kind of like the boat being closer to the dock. So
yeah.
having a little bit of a runway instead of like a helicopter, which is what I try to do, just jump in. So that's what's amazing about 2021. You can start a side project. You
Yes.
can get your course off the ground or your blog going or your YouTube channel where you can still work in your day job, but then you
Hmm.
can spend evenings and weekends and maybe an hour in the morning working on your dream.
Love that. That is such great advice. That's how I got started with my first
Yeah.
career coaching blog is I had a young family at the time. So it was
Yeah.
like, I didn't want to give up my evenings. I had to do my day job because that's what my wife was a stay-at-home mom, so it was
Yeah.
on me to provide for the family. I couldn't just walk away from that, but yet I knew that wasn't my ultimate calling. I had this unsettled desire to do something more entrepreneurial, and so for me, it was a matter of saying 5 to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday is 10 hours I wish I could do more, but that's what I have. And I'm not being interrupted between 5 and 7 a.m. I wasn't even consider myself to be a morning person when I first got started. But I
Love it.
literally, and I forget who I heard this from, but I wrote it on a sticky note that said, work for yourself first.
Yes.
And so I put that on a sticky note, started getting up at 5 a.m. in those 2 hours in the morning before I went and gave my time to my employer, created that consistency
Hmm.
that breeds momentum. It allowed me to do the things. And here's the other thing, Brian, that it did for me. I wasn't wasting time because I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. to scroll Facebook to see what's been going on with Aunt Matilda. I don't even have an aunt named Matilda. I don't know where it came
Right.
from.
Right.
But it's like, I'm not wasting 45 minutes on social media. I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. to do that.
That's
So it
right.
really helped me to gain that clarity. But you're absolutely right. The beautiful thing about this whole thing that Brian's talking about is that this can be started on the side, but that doesn't mean your business is part time because having a blog, having a podcast, having a website, you're open 24/7. And if you launch a course, you could be at your day job, come home at night and be like, oh, wow, look, I've got money in my PayPal. I've got money in my Stripe account. I was doing something completely else, but my business was still open.
It's absolutely incredible when you get that little ding. I remember when I officially launched my business and I had some coaching and I had a couple kind of standalone courses. And the way that I had my phone set up is anytime there was a PayPal notification, it would like make a cha-ching sound. And that fueled me, like just to know, oh, a $29 sale, a $97 sale, and this little cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That was really fun. But that's the thing. Don't wait for somebody else's permission because they'll never give it because they
Yeah.
don't really get it. So you've got to choose yourself. And the reality is, I like to call it the grandmother test, is you just take a piece of paper and you write a like a T chart, just a line down the middle, and then your grandmother's name on one side and your name on the other side. My grandmother's still alive. She's 94 years old. So I'd write
Wow.
I'd write Mary and Brian. And what does Brian know that Mary doesn't know? And the reality is there's a long list. Now there's a long list of things she knows that I don't know as well. But what do I know that she doesn't know that would be perfect to create a YouTube video about, or to go live on Facebook, or to write a blog post about? And really, it's just the strategy, which other people have said it, is just teach everything you know. Just teach what you know, because there are people that don't know what you know. And when you start teaching it, what happens is you'll attract people who need to learn it, and they'll keep asking you for more content. And then our mutual friend Dan Miller says, when three people ask you the same question, it's time to create a product.
Yeah.
So go put out 10 pieces of content or 30 pieces of content, just teaching what you know. People will start asking questions. And then when you hear it, and you'll hear it right now, listening to me, you'll say, oh, in a couple months, that third time somebody asks the same question, like, people keep asking me about this. Maybe that's what your course should be about.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I know that was kind of my journey as well. It was just like, oh, I published a Kindle book and people were saying, well, how did you do that? So I
How do
taught,
you do it?
I
Yeah.
created a course. Here's how I published a Kindle book. And that
So
was just
good.
kind of the way I got started. So I love that. So I want to talk about, you did something pretty awesome with your son. And I know we're going off script, but
I love it. Let's do
you're a
it.
professional and you and I hang out all the time. So we're just having
Yeah,
conversation here.
that's right.
You did something pretty awesome with your son, and as a father of a daughter and a
Yeah.
son, I've got a 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. My 18-year-old's a freshman at Liberty University, but
Congrats.
she's also in the midst of that. It's kind of a cool story. I sent her my book, and she started reading in my own book, and then her cousin, so my niece, started reading the book, and they started having these conversations that I didn't know about, and they came to me and said, we want to start a blog together. So I don't want to. They have an awesome domain name for it.
Yeah.
They're not launching just yet. They're about a week away. They've been building it on Kajabi. I've been watching them going, you guys are just like, my daughter just told me today, she goes, Dad, we're every Monday we're publishing a new post, and we already have it out to March. When we launch our blog, she goes, there will be a post that goes out every single Monday. And what they want to do is they want to help inspire young adult girls, teenage and adult girls, that they were made for more. That's the tagline. I won't tell you the domain name, but it's called Made for More, and it's
Yeah.
really helping them to not make decisions based on fear, but how can you, as a young woman, step out in faith and build that relationship with God? And it's so cool to see that happen. On the other note, my son and my wife started reading the book, and she went to my son's, he's 16 years old, and said, we should maybe do a podcast together. So they've recorded a few episodes without putting it out there yet. And they're not ready to do that yet. But that's been so cool for me, is to see my children come alive with things that they're passionate about. Can you, I know that that recently happened with your son. Can you
Yes.
share a little bit of that story? Because I think it'd be inspiring for people.
Oh, it's so crazy. That's what's amazing about the internet is we get to be we get to be part of this movement of sharing a message we care about for people that we care about and getting paid at the same time. Is absolutely incredible. So the so this story starts when my son, he was 10 years old, and this is last spring when his school was canceled. His school was shut down for the last few weeks of the school year, like most schools were. And he missed his friends, and he wanted to see his friends, and kind of sitting around twiddling his thumbs. And he had an idea to have a lemonade stand and to put or to sell his toys, that sort of thing, like out in front. And I said, listen, I'm an online entrepreneur. If you're going to start a business, it has to be online. Uh, like, like brick and mortar, especially at the
Right then, yeah.
end of the driveway, there's not the right traffic. Let's go where the people are, and people are online. So let's figure out something online. So he's sitting with it and he's thinking about it. I even gave him Russell Brunson's book, .com Secrets. So he starts reading
Yep.
.com Secrets, and he came back to me and he said, I'd like to do something with Lego. I'm like, okay, cool,
Mm,
Lego. We can work with Lego because there are people that are fans of Lego. There's even adult fans of Lego. That's a
yeah.
good niche market. I said, okay, well, if you're going to spend time doing this, I want this to be a character education experience as well. So you got to do something faith related. So we started working on it, and we came up with this idea called Bible Builds. And so it's a membership site where every Sunday afternoon, my son Ryland, at 10 years old at the time, he would read a Bible story. Like David and Goliath was one of his first ones. So he reads the classic story of David and Goliath. He rewrites it in his own words. He writes a script. And then we had a little teleprompter for our iPhone. So he shoots the script. I helped him edit the video. We send out the video to the members at the beginning of the week on Sunday. They have till Friday to create a Lego build about that story using their own bricks.
Yes.
So we're not mailing them a kit or anything. It's just all online. And they send in a picture of their builds by Friday at night, Friday midnight, or Friday at like 9 o'clock. Saturday morning, we create a little survey of the top 5 that we like, or the top 10, depending on how many we get. And then they vote, and there's a winner for the week. And we charge
Awesome.
$15 a month. So we're like, okay, this is cool. So we started out, I posted on my Facebook and things like that. And we had 15, 20 members, and then 20 or 30 members, and then 30 or 40 members. And it started to grow. And Jonathan, we were 8 weeks in. So think about the diligence of a 10-year-old creating this content on a weekly basis, engaging this
Amazing.
audience. Like, it was already a win. He had made
Yeah.
maybe 500, $600. He's like, for a 10-year-old, that was incredible. So he believed me now that the internet is actually a great opportunity as opposed to a lemonade stand or what have you. And then the craziest thing is, at the end of week 8, I got a random Facebook message by a mutual friend who I'd never met before, a New York Times bestselling author, Jefferson Bethke. And Jeff basically said, like, it was funny. He was like, shame on you. I'm like, what? We don't know each other. He's like, you started the business that I always wanted to start. I'm like, cool. Like, let's figure out a way to work together. So we hopped on a call a couple of times. We talked about it. And what I realized is our ceiling was his floor. And
Mm,
that often happens in entrepreneurship. Like, we
yeah.
get it as far as we can, and then somebody else sees a bigger vision and takes it to the next level. So Jeff has a relationship with Yippee, and Yippee is like a Christian Netflix kind of a thing. And so Jeff came in, bought 80% of the company. So my son Ryland, 11 years old now, he had a 5-figure exit, sold it for more than $10,000. I won't say the number, but a
Yeah.
5-figure exit.
Yeah.
Still owns 20%. And here's the thing: in a couple weeks, Ryland and I are flying to LA, and we're gonna help shoot 26 episodes of the
Wow.
next version of this thing. So he's still involved, but he still exited his company. So it's really cool. Jeff's been amazing, and already there's hundreds and hundreds of members in the new version of it. So it's been incredible.
That's awesome. You said Ryland, right? Is that correct?
Ryland, yeah,
Yeah.
Ryland, yeah.
So, how cool of an experience for him to be exposed to this at such a young age, and to see like how things work and how you can take an idea and turn it into a business and put it out there and then sell it. I mean, such an inspiring story. I love that. I hope all of you that are watching right now, you're inspired by this. And here's a little thing that I just wanted you to know, okay? I'm just going to say it. When you, as a parent, take courage, it allows and gives permissions for your kids.
Yes.
And I can't remember who said it sometime this week. I've done a lot of interviews this week, but somebody was talking about like the most detrimental thing. I think it was Carrie Oberbrunner who said the most
Yeah,
detrimental
great
thing
story.
to a child is the unlived life of the parent.
So good.
But on the other end, the most helpful thing to a child is the absolutely lived life of the parent. And I think that's just awesome that he's already caught the vision that, man, I could do things that I know that I'm passionate about and get started, and I can actually build a business around it. So, man, that is so awesome.
It's so great. Yeah, to learn more, I have to say it. He
Go
would
for
kill me
it.
if I didn't.
Yeah.
Biblebuilds.com. Biblebuilds.com is the site. Here's the thing. What I have learned as a dadpreneur, right? As a dad who's an entrepreneur, is to share what I'm learning with my kids. So
Hmm.
literally they'll see what books I'm reading. I will, I'm doing dishes and I'll have some marketing trainer up on the TV teaching something, and like I'm sharing it with them. I'll listen to marketing training in the car. And there's many people, like I think about Kevin Miller, Dan Miller's son. Like he grew up like listening to Zig Ziglar in the car. My kids are growing up listening to Russell Brunson and people like that in the car. And
Hmm.
they're going to grow up starting businesses and making a huge impact. And I think, one of the things we can do as parents is kind of ruin our kids for the job market, make them unemployable, make them the leaders of the next generation.
Yeah, and I heard somebody else say that the jobs our children will have, or careers or
Yep.
businesses our children will have, haven't even been invented yet.
Amazing.
And so you've got to be open. You've got to stay open. You can't just expect to fit the mold of everything else as well. And I absolutely love that. In fact, quick story this morning. So just before we got on, one of the things we do at our house is every Friday morning, my family gets together and we do breakfast together in our kitchen, and we share three things. What were your wins from the week? What's on your mind, or what's been on your mind, and what's ahead for the next week, so we can all be on the same page. And this morning, my son was sharing one of the projects that he's working on is he's really passionate about story. I mean,
Mhm.
he has read all kind of books around story, and just like Joseph Campbell's book that like
Amazing.
college students read. I mean, he's read that, and anyways, what he's doing is he's actually learned and taught himself coding. So he is starting to create his own video games. And one particular project he's working on right now, he's just like, it's just daunting. It's like hard to do. And he was just like, that's what's been on my mind, is like, how do I just like get started when I don't know what I don't know? And so immediately I thought about Start Before You're Ready and Do the Work from Stephen Pressfield. And I went and grabbed it off my shelf, gave it to him. And this morning he's been reading it about how the resistance is the thing that's holding us back.
Yes.
That's our enemy, right? Our enemy is not other people. Our enemy is not anything else, but then just the resistance that shows up. And so I love it that you've shared knowledge and books. I remember giving my son 3 years ago. He's in middle school at school.
Yep.
And when he completes his projects, he's pulling out a book, and his friends were like, "Why are you reading a business book?" It was the Profit First book. He doesn't even have a
Oh,
business yet, but he's reading Profit First. It's so fun.
I love it.
So that's an obvious success or win so far in your
Mhm.
journey, but I want you to share looking back, and it could be small, it could be big, but
Yeah.
what has been for you a success or win for stepping out, launching into your own business? Looking back, what's a success or a win?
Yeah, I would probably put Hope Writers as one of the bigger successes that we've had. Hope Writers is a membership site, almost 4,000 members at this point, and it really started. It's the same strategy. It's just create the solution you wish existed. So I was speaking at a conference, and a few of my friends were also speaking at that conference, and we wish that there was a place that we could get regular training like what we were getting at that conference and like frankly what we were delivering at that conference, but with a continuous community, to be able to have a community that encourages you to move forward, because especially launching books, like you know how that is.
Hmm.
Launching a book can feel so wonky and weird, and you just feel like not in your own skin when you're launching a book and asking people to buy a book that you worked so hard on. And so we said, you know, what if there was a place that was really hopeful, not self-promotion-y, you know, not spammy or cheesy and the latest black hat strategy, but like an actually encouraging place, the place you want to hang out. And so that was our big idea. And it really started by just interviewing friends and just saying, hey, what would you say to an aspiring author who wants to get their book out? And that kind of snowballed over the years. We're now 5 years in, 51 team members. You know, it's been a big success. It's called Hope Writers. And the lesson of Hope Writers, which I've applied to other businesses as well, is just look around for the gap in your marketplace that you wish somebody would fill, and just ask yourself the question, well, if no one else is going to do it, what if I did? Like, what if I tried to solve this problem? Because when you're clear on the what, the how will appear.
Mm.
And the what is the problem. So if you're clear on the problem you're trying to solve, you keep asking that question, you'll figure it out. I mean, for Hope Writers, we went from, we were on WordPress, and then we tried all kinds of landing page builders, and finally we landed on Kajabi. We love Kajabi. I know you use Kajabi as well.
Mm.
So there were things that we did over time that, man, I wish we would have skipped those 3 years of a learning curve.
Yeah.
But because we kept moving towards solving the problem, we figured out how to do it. And I think that's the big win. It's just define the problem clearly, and then just keep moving towards a solution, and you will figure it out over time.
Yeah, great advice. I absolutely love that. So what's next for you? Coming up 2021, what are you working on?
Oh, you know, I've been full-time online for 7 years, and mostly kind of speaker and a coach, pretty like high level one-on-one coach. It's not cheap to work with me. And my coaching clients started saying, well, because I'd use other examples. I'd say, well, I'm talking to Susan about this, or I'm talking about Carol about this. And they're like, I'd love to meet her. And so going into 2021, realizing like we is more powerful than me. We need community now more than ever before. I started a marketing mentorship group. So that's briandixon.com/mentor. It's just a group of, there's 53 of our members, and on Mondays I teach new content, like what I'm actually doing in my business right now. So kind of a look over my shoulder. Here's what's working in my business, so you can learn from me. And then on Friday we just do a group Q&A coaching call where we just kind of share the progress we've made. And to have a small community like that where they're cheering each other on, they're celebrating each other's birthdays. Like we've only been doing it for, I had a pre-launch, so we've been doing it for a couple months now, but it really started in January. It's been really, really fun. And you know what? The coolest thing, Jonathan, is like every single thing you've been through, this is for you guys watching right now, every single thing you've been through is not wasted.
Mm.
In fact, looking back, it's all part of that like red thread of redemption. It's part of your story.
Yes.
And I love being a coach and a mentor and a teacher. And that's what I am now. I just took kind of a windy path to get there. And so as you look back in your history, you might say, you know, that job I had like 3 jobs ago, that will never be related to how I do online business. Well, if you keep moving forward, starting with your people, keep serving people, eventually you'll go, I'm using some of the skills I learned from that job. And so being a
Yes.
marketing mentor is just been a lot of fun. And that's really what I'm leaning into in 2021.
That is so good. And the experiences you've been through are not wasted. I know for me, it's like if you look at my resume,
Yeah.
you would clearly say this is a wandering child who has no idea what he's doing. But you know what
Or
I
an
just
entrepreneur.
but here's what I discovered, and I really wanted people to get this, is that
Yep.
your passions change, but your purpose remains. And your purpose is how you show up best and serve people.
Yeah.
And it's okay if your passions change. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing today, maybe something different. I'm no longer doing career coaching for accountants. My passion changed. And who knows what the next 5 to 10 years hold. But what is true about me is I know showing up as a practical, resourceful teacher is what people gain value from. And so no matter what I do in the future, that's the thing. I can't be a comedian. I can't be, maybe an inspiring speaker on stage of 100,000 people, but I can be a practical, resourceful teacher. That's what I can give people. And when you understand what's changeless about you, it settles you. And then find a problem you're passionate about solving for the next 2 to 5 years. And just like you're talking about, go into that. Don't be thinking about, oh, it's got to be that one thing I do for the rest of my life. And I know it hasn't been that way for you. You've like been clued into those different things that have come along that you're like, you know what? Here's an opportunity for me to help people. I love
That's
that.
right.
Anything
That's so
else?
good.
I guess I would say this. Anything else you'd like to share, or people are watching right now,
Mhm.
they're on the fence. There's a lot of people that just may be like 2021. They're like, this is a new, fresh start, new
Right.
start of the year.
Yeah.
But then there comes that but, right? But
Yes.
I don't understand technology. But I don't know if I have value to share.
That's
But
right.
I feel overwhelmed and don't have time. But the economy might be going downhill. There's all those buts that enter in. What would you say to those that are watching right now that they feel this unsettled desire to do something,
Mhm.
but there's a but in the way?
Oh, it's so good. That's so good. You gotta, yeah. There's three quick things I'd share. Number one is the idea of future pacing or future casting. Who is it that you want to be a year from now? The way that I ask it as I start a new project is I ask myself, will Brian a year from now? So will 2022 Brian, which is weird to say, Brian in 2022, how will he feel about the decision you just made? And most of the time, it's doing the hard thing. It's not going and checking social again. It's working on the script. And so that's the first thing is be clear about where you want to be a year from now. I actually have my coaching clients write it down. This is what I want to be true in a year from now. And then we go about like doing the work to make it real. So
Mm,
that's the first thing. Number two is you've got to minimize the inputs and maximize the outputs. So we've got way too much input. Right now is a tumultuous time in our news, in our country. The more you watch news, the more frustrated you're gonna be. And I'm not
yeah,
saying be completely ignorant, but maybe take it in chunks instead of swallowing everything.
yeah,
So maybe just make a rule like I'm only gonna check the news on Saturdays. Like turn off the TV or at least lower the consumption of how much input you're taking in. That's number two, and then number three, which I learned a few years ago, and it completely changed my business, is pick one mentor for the entire year.
mm,
So y'all, you can't do better than Jonathan Milligan. So like say John's my guy this year. I'm gonna buy his book. I'm gonna sign up for his university. I'm gonna hire him as a coach. Like I'm gonna work with Jonathan for a year. And here's the thing, you will make so much more progress with one teacher, with one coach, with one mentor than attending all kinds of different webinars and reading all kinds of different books and signing up for all kinds of different courses. Because even though they might all technically be right, they're teaching the same thing, but they're teaching it in different order. And so then it conflicts and it's so confusing. And so I started this about 5 years ago. I said, you know what? This year, I'm just listening to Amy Porterfield. I'm only going to listen to her. No matter what she says, she's my girl. Everybody else, next year. I will listen to you next year. It also helps you with budget. So you're not going and buying all these random courses because they'll come
yes.
back around a year from now. So focus on one mentor for the year and you'll make significant progress.
I love that. It's a great way to focus, especially focusing your learning and
Yeah.
matching that learning with action. So for every hour you consume a course, there should be backed up with an hour of taking action, no matter how messy it is. It's
Yes.
working on trying to apply, and that's so good. Well, Brian, this has been great. I know we wanted to go 30 minutes, but I just couldn't help like continuing to
Thanks for having me.
ask questions and just
Yeah.
dropping knowledge bombs. And there's been a lot of shout out in the chat. In fact, Bet Lynn says, "Yay, I'm a Hope Writer."
Yay.
So cool. And so, where can people connect with you online? Let's kind of wrap this up today and
Absolutely.
where can they continue to follow you?
My favorite place to introduce myself to people and get to know people is just Instagram. Brian J. Dixon over on Instagram. I love checking the DMs there. So just hop on over on Instagram. Tell me that you heard me on this, and send me a message. I'd love to connect with you that way. It's a great place to start. Of course, I have a website, briandixon.com. And then also, if you've been thinking about writing a book, or you have a message to share and a book is in your future, I can't more highly recommend Hope Writers. Emily P. Freeman, Gary Moreland, and I started it 5 years ago, and it really has helped authors make the dream real by getting clear of the message and helping them serve their audience. And we've got a free download at hopewriters.com.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you for being here, friend. We're praying for a great 2021 and everything that you're up to. And we just appreciate you coming and delivering the value you did today. So thanks for being here.
I'm honored to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Jonathan. Thanks for the work that you're doing to help messengers get their message out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview. As you can tell, Brian has all kinds of knowledge. I see you guys sharing in the chat all the little nuggets of truth that you got today. Hope you're inspired by that story. And we have 2 more interviews today. So at 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be having Loria Petrucci talk about live streaming. How do you get started with live streaming? Maybe live streaming could be your thing in 2021 that makes all the difference. And then come back tonight, 8 p.m. We're going to be interviewing somebody right here in our own community, Charles Wesson, who is helping. He's creating a online coaching program for restaurant owners, especially those who are battling all the restrictions and shutdowns on how to still engage your inactive guests. So if you know of a restaurant owner, that'll be a fun conversation tonight at 8. And also, before we wrap up, yesterday I made a special announcement about something cool that we're going to be doing next week. And this is all designed to help you to be able to get a jump start in 2021. It is called the Uncover Your Calling Challenge. This is a 5-day challenge. And the goal of this challenge, we're going to all be in a private Facebook group. I'm going to go live every day for 5 days. And I'm going to give you one thing to work on, one little exercise. Like Brian talked about just a few minutes ago, what's ordinary to you is magic to others. If you want to know, how do I uncover that thing? How do I find my unique ability? Is there an exercise that I could do? Jonathan, what exercise did you use to figure out your gift? And so this is a free challenge. You just go to jmill.biz/calling. This is a special link we set up. That's just short for my name, jmill.biz/calling. And you can participate in that challenge for free and be inspired by all the other people, see their exercises and what they're doing. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to kick it off on Monday. So now is the time to get into that challenge. We're going to open up the Facebook group for 1 week, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Come join us for that. All right, guys, thanks for being here. We'll see you back here at 3 o'clock.